Construction projects.
Introduction to the module. A handy person is skilled in many sectors.
Hence, it is no different in construction work as well. You will learn about resource management, bricklaying, working in heights, etc., from this module.
Topics to be covered.
Construction project. Resource management.
Bricklaying.
Protecting workers at height. Construction project. Construction projects are intricate, time-consuming undertakings. The total development of a project usually consists of several phases requiring a diverse range of specialized services. Even a structure of modest proportions involves many skills, materials, and hundreds of different operations during the construction process itself. You must follow a natural order of events that constitutes a complicated pattern of individual time requirements and restrictive sequential relationships among the structure's many segments. Resource management. The term resources refers to manpower, construction equipment, materials, and subcontractors. These resources control job progress, and you must manage them carefully during the construction process. Schedules of future resource needs are prepared and positive steps taken to assure that adequate job support will be available as required. Favorable material deliveries require skilled attention to procurement, shop drawing review and approval, expediting, and quality control. You must arrange and schedule labor crews and construction equipment. Subcontractors must be kept informed of the overall job schedule and given advance notice when their services are required, and their work must be coordinated with the total project effort. Bricklaying. Bricklaying tools. A bricklayer's basic toolkit includes tools required for 4 general types of work: spreading, leveling and measuring, pointing and jointing, cutting bricks and blocks. The tools covered here are those that a bricklayer should ideally possess to cover the basic craft skills. Not all can be bought, and a few will need to be homemade. Several other tools are used infrequently, as, and when necessary, that would not be regarded as an essential part of a basic bricklaying tool kit. Basic bricklaying technique. The basic bricklaying technique, from picking up a trowel full of mortar to the point of bedding bricks, involves several distinct steps and processes. Each bricklayer will bring a slightly different personal style to how these hand skills are carried out. Still, it is fair to say that, regardless of the style used, the most crucial issue is the effectiveness of the result, provided that the following basic techniques are employed. Cutting and rolling. Cutting and rolling are carried out as follows. Hold the brick trowel with your thumb in line with the handle and point towards the tip of the blade. In general terms, the trowel never leaves the trowel hand. Cut away from the central pile a quantity of mortar roughly sufficient to fill the trowel blade. Using a sawing motion, roll the mortar across towards the front of the board to form a roll big enough to cover the trowel blade. During the cutting and rolling process, keep the trowel blade in contact with the board to clean the board as the mortar is rolled. The blade is not kept entirely perpendicular to the board, instead, it is inclined over slightly towards the front of the board to assist the rolling process. The aim is to cut and roll a piece of mortar that is much the same shape and plan size as the trowel blade. Having cut and rolled the mortar, move the trowel back from the roll of mortar and turn it so that the blade is horizontal about 1 mm above the spot board and around 50 mm away from the mortar roll in preparation for picking it up. At this point, some bricklayers prefer to loosen their grip and turn the trowel slightly outwards to avoid having to bend and strain the wrist too much. With a sharp movement and leading with the long inside edge of the trowel, pick up the roll of mortar. This movement needs to be fast enough to overcome the inertia of the roll of mortar but not so fast that the trowel flies straight through it. Spreading bed joints. Ideally, a bed joint should be spread sufficiently thinly so the brick can be pressed to gauge with little or no tapping from the trowel. Hold the trowel of mortar over the position where the bed joint is required. This may be the surface of a concrete foundation at the start of new work or on top of the previous course of brickwork for ongoing work. Spreading involves transferring a trowel full of mortar into something resembling a line of mortar. Turn the trowel vertically through 90 degrees and combine a dropping motion with, simultaneously, sweeping or drawing the trowel blade backwards along and parallel to the line of brickwork. In general terms, the direction of spreading is always along the wall and not across it, regardless of whether headers or stretchers are being laid. If the mortar bed has not quite spread evenly, pick up thicker parts with the trowel edge and deposit them at one end of the line of mortar so that the initial spreading is more even and elongated. With the point of the trowel, furrow the spread mortar along its length and backwards with a series of undulating trowel movements. This creates an indentation alongside the spread mortar, which, when a brick is pressed into it, fills to make a full bed joint. Having furrowed the mortar, use the inside edge of the trowel with the top face of the blade turned outwards to trim off any mortar that overhangs front and back to provide a neat edge to the bed joint in readiness to receive bricks. Bedding bricks. Having successfully spread a bed joint, the bricks are then bedded as follows. Lay the brick by placing it onto the mortar bed and gently press it until a 10 mm bed joint is achieved, in other words, to gauge. Eye down the cross joints for verticality with those below, and properly align the brick, by eye, as close as possible to its final position. Using the inside edge of the trowel, with the top face of the blade turned outwards, cleanly trim off the mortar that squeezes out front and back. Do not turn the trowel inwards when trimming off, as this will smear mortar up the face of the brick that has been laid. Protecting workers at height. Few would disagree that the employer has a responsibility to provide a safe and healthful workplace. This text will not attempt to wade through the complex matter of division of legal responsibilities of owners, employers, contractors, or other jurisdictional layers within the workplace. A successful safety program requires effective planning, training, and management. While no one magic tool applies to all circumstances, some general principles are shared by those who work safely at height. While specific requirements may vary depending on the jurisdiction, it is generally accepted that workers must be protected when they are working above 6 feet. This includes, but is not limited to, situations where an employee is on a surface that has an unprotected side or edge, is constructing a leading edge, may fall through a hole in the walking or working surface, is working on the face of formwork or reinforcing steel, is on a ramp, runway, or other exposed walkway, is working at the edge of an excavation, well, pit, or shaft, is working above dangerous equipment, is performing overhand bricklaying and related work, is performing roofing work on low-sloped roofs, is working on steep roofs, is engaging in precast concrete erection, with certain exceptions, is engaged in residential construction, with certain exceptions. It is the responsibility of the employers to be aware of which rules and regulations apply to their workplace. Where multiple potentially applicable rules appear to be contradictory, it is always best to take the most conservative approach. The full hazard survey should be performed by someone conversant in the country's requirements and jurisdiction during which the work is being performed. Summary. This module can be summarized as: the term resources refers to manpower, construction equipment, materials, and subcontractors. The basic bricklaying technique, from picking up a trowel full of mortar to the point of bedding bricks, involves several distinct steps and processes. A successful safety program requires effective planning, training, and management. It is generally accepted that workers must be protected when they are working above 6 feet. The full hazard survey should be performed by someone familiar with the country's requirements and jurisdiction in which the work is being performed.